have reached the last of my 2020-21 NBA divisional preview videos. That's right, 5 divisions done, and we're on the last one now. Yippity skip. But if this is your first time checking this channel out, make sure you click that subscribe button. Smash it! Smash it! Yeah, do that. And then click the bell. What the hell, so that way you're notified of future videos from this channel. Alright, so we've talked about the Eastern Conference already. We've already talked about the Pacific and Southwest divisions. So, one division and one division alone remaining. And that is, of course, the Northwest division. Easy for me to say. Woo! I must have hit the eggnog a little early here. So anyways, let's go ahead and do this. Talk about the Northwest division. Yeah. You're going to go there, go all the way. You're going to tear it down and rebuild, you get nuts. And Sam Presti and the Oklahoma City Thunder decided, let's get nuts. As they should have. You know, last season was kind of nice, good story. Chris Paul has a resurgent year. Gallinari plays well. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, really starts to show what he could be in the league. And all of a sudden, the Oklahoma City Thunder make it to the playoffs, and they take the Houston Rockets to 7 games. Nobody saw that coming. But also being smart enough to realize that, yeah, this team has no staying power. It is time to break it up and break it up now. And they certainly did. They traded away Chris Paul, Steven Adams, Dennis Schroeder, all gone. Danilo Gallinari's gone. He went and signed with the Atlanta Hawks. They took on contracts like George Hill and Al Horford, but that's more just about trying to get and accumulate those first-round picks. That's all it's about. Which, if you're going to be in a position to rebuild, like, you want as much draft pick capital, as much ammunition in the holster as you possibly can get. Especially when you're a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder, because you're playing a market that might not be the most appealing for free agents. So the more chances you have in the draft to hit on the big stars is certainly going to be advantageous for you. But you've got a great opportunity here for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the Dort kid who played really well in that Game 7 and put up the 30 points. For those two guys to really step up and show what they could do, I think we all assume that SGA is going to be a star, probably future all-star. And you can at least say, if you're Oklahoma City, you've got all of this plethora of draft picks there, and you've got a potential building block, which a lot of other teams that would put themselves in that position don't. So you already have one building block. You absolutely do. Which leads you to believe that this team is going to stink this year, and they're going to be banging it out for the worst record in the Western Conference. Certainly worst record in this division. They'll have that probably by a good margin even. And worst record in the league, and they might achieve all of that. But it's just a temporary blip on the radar. I'd be surprised if they won 15 or 17 games this year. Like, they're going to be bad, you would assume. And they're going to be really bad. But long term, that's probably okay. But one thing I would caution for those of you that like to buy into the draft picks make awesome, that didn't mean anything. This is the same organization a decade ago that had Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden and got 0 championships out of it. That's all I'm going to say. Look at the Minnesota Timberwolves and you think to yourself, okay, this is a team with some what appears to be young kind of marquee talent and a Karl-Anthony Towns who's certainly a legit #1 type of player. Maybe a less good version of Anthony Davis, maybe, let's say. Slightly different, but you get the point of what I'm getting at. And then you've got a D'Angelo Russell, who's a former All-Star in the league, and he's still himself pretty damn young. Former top pick, or top 2 pick in the draft. Like, you're talking about a couple of guys there that have been previously very highly drafted that other organizations thought were going to be building blocks for the future. The D'Angelo Russell with the Lakers, and then obviously Karl-Anthony Towns with the T-Wolves. And they've got both of them. But, when I look at this team, this is, to me, an example of you can bring in a bunch of young talent and you can have a bunch of new, fresh faces and guys with talent, but that doesn't necessarily mean that meshes or gels. Like, you look at D'Angelo Russell. He's a high-volume scorer and high-volume shooter to get to his points, and he's an average at best shooter. Karl-Anthony Towns is really good, but what else do they really have around him? Like, I look at this roster and I say, this is kind of funky because between Culver and Okogie and Beasley. It's a bunch of the similar size profile type of player. And then into the mix, you bring in a Ricky Rubio. A lot of T-Wolves fans are probably happy about that. And I think he certainly provides an upgrade at the point guard position, allows D'Angelo Russell to play off the ball more. But then you also bring in another guy like an Anthony Edwards, who you take first overall in the draft. And look, I think Anthony Edwards has massive upside as a big-time premium scorer in the league. But when I look at this T-Wolves team, this to me is going to be this example this season of they'll have stretches where they might play really well and beat some really good opponents, and then they're going to have some stretches where they play really, really, really bad ball. I do not like the makeup of this team. It's a lot of similar type of guys, a bunch of 6'5" to 6'7" guys that frankly can't shoot a fucking lick. You're just not going to win much in the NBA. Like, the quicker they can get to a point where an Anthony Edwards shows that he could be a legit dominant wing player, and you could ship off a D'Angelo Russell and you could build around Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards, the better off they're going to be. They need, some more of those 3-4 type of guys that they don't have. Ricky Rubio, you're talking about for the here and now is okay as a point guard option, but in the long term, nah. For me, I'm more excited for the T-Wolves as much as anything this year to see what Anthony Edwards does. Because, again, I think he's got big-time upside. And if he starts to flash that big-time upside, you think the needle's pointing up for the T-Wolves. But you're also in a division with the Jazz, the Blazers, and the Nuggets. You shouldn't really feel all that confident about their chances. So maybe they win 25 games this year, but that's about it. Denver Nuggets, to me, are an interesting prediction. Because on the one hand, this is a team that made it to the Western Conference Finals. It absolutely did. So when you look at teams and you envision, like, hey, who's going to be the potential usurper of the Lakers in the West? Who's the team best positioned, most poised, most likely to unseat them at the top of the conference? You might think it's the Denver Nuggets, especially because they got Nikola Jokic. Joker is the man, period. Like, he's an absolute stud. Best center in the league, which on the one hand doesn't say a whole lot, but the fact is he absolutely is. Then you've got Jamal Murray as a great kind of number 2 option coming off of a really nice postseason. I thought he really showed out well for himself at key times. You're also talking about a team that gets Will Barton returning back from injury, so you're kind of number 3 option at the present time. You're hoping to get back and have in the fold for an entire season. So you're looking at this team and you say, hey, that, and you've got Michael Porter Jr. It was his first year in the NBA playing last year. Like, what's he going to do in year 2? What type of step forward is he going to take? But then I also think about it like the Nuggets are a team that in part benefited from Bogdanovich going down with injury for the Jazz. And then when you look at the Trailblazers, they lost Nurkic and Hood at Collins at different points of time for extended periods of time in the case of Nurkic to injury. When you're talking about these teams, like, was Denver really that much better than the Blazers or the Jazz, or did they just kind of benefit from being able to stay relatively healthy compared to the competition? I think it's a fair question. Now, I will say, I'm not trying to dismiss the Nuggets. You might say, well, you got them 3rd in the division when they really didn't get any worse, and they won the division last year, and they made it to the Western Conference Finals. I think it's more of a reflection of the other teams got better because of their circumstances. The Nuggets didn't get worse. I just don't know that they got better. I think here's what it comes down to for the Nuggets. I think you could talk about all types of things about what a team does offensively or defensively, but at the end of the day, more often than not in the NBA, it's about star power. It is absolutely about those guys that could take over, that could be the difference makers. And it comes down to Michael Porter Jr.'s development this year. If Michael Porter Jr. becomes that 3rd option at least, and he becomes a legit type of force on the wing, as that kind of stretch 3-4 type of guy, now you're talking about a Nuggets team that feels a little bit different. You're talking about a Nuggets team that could really bother a team like the Lakers with their size and their versatility in their front court. But if Michael Porter Jr. only takes a small step forward, this is a team that could potentially get back to the Western Conference Finals, but I wouldn't be as surprised if they got bounced in the first round. Like, let's keep in mind here that when you're talking about the Nuggets, they barely got out of the first round. And in the second round, they were down 3-1 to the Clippers. And it took another Doc Rivers gag show for them to make it to the Western Conference Finals. So let's not pretend like this Denver team was dominant on their way to the Western Conference Finals. It was that close of a margin between that appearance in the finals and getting bounced in the first round. So I look at them and I see teams like the Jazz and the Blazers, I think, frankly, have gotten better. The Nuggets haven't gotten worse, but it's all going to come down, in my opinion, on Michael Porter Jr. staying healthy all year and taking a big step forward. If he does, they're dangerous. If he doesn't, then this feels about right for where they'd be at. Utah, it's almost similar to the Stockton and Malone days, and obviously you don't have Stockton and Malone. But you look at this Jazz team, and it's another example of a team that's really well coached by Quinn Snyder. Their guys play hard. You feel like you're always getting the best out of them. They've got decent depth. They've got flexibility to do different things, but you always wonder if they actually have the right mix of the right pieces to be able to take that next step. Like, you don't have a doubt that they'll make the playoffs and be a tough out for anybody in the playoffs, but are they the type of team that is truly a championship contender? And you look at last year, when Bogdanovich went down with the wrist injury, this team still fought hard. You still have Donovan Mitchell, you have Rudy Gobert, you have Mike Conley Jr. You've got a really good trio that is your foundational core set. You took Denver to 7 games. So it was really close. You almost got past the first round of the playoffs, but do they have enough? Like, do they have the true alpha? Is Donovan Mitchell the true alpha in those big spots when it's really needed? I think he certainly flashed that potential, but is it time for him to take that next step forward and just go from being an all-star guard to being a first-team All-NBA type of guard? Is that what it's going to take for a Jazz team like this under its current construction to be a championship contender, a threat to the Lakers in the West? And I certainly think that's the case. Having Bojan Bogdanovich come back from the wrist injury, now you're talking about getting that fourth scorer. You get him back and his ability to shoot, his ability to create offense. You're talking about a different Jazz team. I will give them that. And they're well coached. Like I said, they're balanced. They've got some decent depth. They've got some legit, cornerstone type of players here, especially in Mitchell and Gobert. Like, this is a really, really good team. Like, this is a type of the team that you expect that not a lot of people will talk about, but you understand and anticipate. You know that they're going to be there and they're going to be in the mix. And then they're absolutely the type of team that on the one hand, you might feel confident that your team can beat in the playoffs, but you absolutely positively don't want to face them because you know it's going to be a scrap, a fight, and a battle all the way. Like, as a Bulls fan, I think about those 97 and 98 Jazz teams. There are certainly some similarities there. I think for the Jazz, I could certainly make a strong argument with Bogdanovich coming back and assuming he'll be healthy most of the year, that they might be the best team in this division, and I think that could certainly play out. But for now, I think they're bordering on being a 50-win team, and I've got somebody else in the division ahead of them. Yes, the Portland Trailblazers, who had the 8th seed last year, that only finished 4th place in this division. I've got them jumping all the way up to number 1. And you say, well, how did that happen? Well, the Oklahoma City Thunder, we know what they're doing. So that takes one team in front of them completely out of the mix. And then you look at the other two teams and you say the Denver Nuggets, like they won that division. Yes, they absolutely did. But again, I don't see where they really got any better unless Michael Porter Jr. takes a big step forward. And then, I guess you could say technically bringing back a Will Barton from injury is going to help them. But then you look at the Jazz and you say getting a Bogdanovich back is going to help them. So what is it that makes you think that the Blazers will be the team in this division that wins 50 or more games? Why do you think that they're going to win the division? I'll tell you a few reasons. Number one, I think they have the best backcourt in the league with Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. Dame is going to be in the mix probably as an MVP candidate this year because he's certainly at the height and the peak of his powers and his skills as a point guard in this league. You look at Carmelo Anthony, in his role for what he did. This was a guy that came in and played in some big spots and some big moments, big games for this team last year, and he delivered. Like, he was a shot maker for them. He was a guy that gave them additional offense, that gave them a little bit of balance. And then you're talking about a team that's looking to get Nurkic back. They're going to have him back where he missed the majority of last season, and even then they still found a way to make the playoffs. You talk about getting Rodney Hood back from injury, Zach Collins back from injury. Collins is that kind of athletic, versatile 4-5 role player that you like to have. Rodney Hood is a wing that can sit there and space out the floor. He's another guy that could play alongside C.J. McCollum and Damian Lillard, and he can shoot. And then you look at Nurkic, he's basically Nikola Jokic light. Doesn't it feel great, Bulls fans, to know that the Bulls once drafted him and Gary Harris and then sent him packing for Doug McDermott? Starter packs! Yay! But you look at this team and you say, with some of these pieces coming back, like you already feel pretty good about them. And then you add guys like Robert Covington into the mix and Derek Jones into the mix. So you're adding kind of some additional nice role-playing pieces around them. I think Covington is certainly going to be a nice get for these guys. You've got Anthony Simmons, the young kid entering his third season. I think he started to show some flashes. He might not get, much more opportunity for playing time, but he might do even better with the time that he has. When I just look at this team, I sit there and I say, if I'm looking at top 2 players on the team, I like Dame and McCollum over anybody else's top 2. I absolutely do. And then when I look at the rest of the team, I like the makeup of this team. I like the construction of this team. I like, having a Carmelo there as kind of an experienced, almost calming presence, if you will, and being a guy that can hit some shots, and getting a Nurkic back into the fold is going to be absolutely huge for this team because he brings so much to them on the offensive and defensive side of the game. I look at this Portland team and I say, hey, man, yeah, you were the 8th seed last year, but I look at what you've added, look what you're getting back, look who you already have, and I do think you can make a very strong argument that the Blazers are positioned to win this Northwest Division. Now, as soon as I started piecing this together and thinking about that, then I saw Charles Barkley's talking about putting a bet out there for the Blazers to make it to the NBA Finals, which means oh, they're screwed. He put the old Barkley terrible curse on them, so they're done. I'm not going to change my pick now. I think the Blazers might win 51 games, but I do think they're going to win this Northwest Division. I have finished completely the division-by-division previews for this 2020-21 NBA season. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I could certainly say that it's helping to get me more interested and more engaged in the NBA season than I have been in quite some time. I anticipate doing a little bit more NBA-related content on this channel this year. Now, is that just going to be me watching Bulls games and doing some or many or all game recaps here on this channel? Possibly. It could be that I talk more about other happenings and other things and other teams in the league. That certainly could be the case. I don't know yet. But if you have enjoyed it, let me know in the comment sections. Let me know if you want me to continue to do more NBA-related videos on this channel. Again, if it's your first time checking me out and you enjoyed this, or if you didn't, either way, smash that subscribe button. That way you can come back and torture me in future videos. Can you do that? All right, fantastic. I'm out.